He was almost there. Daylight, real daylight, was somewhere above him. He could feel it, warm, faint, reaching down through the dark, like a hand. Behind him, footsteps, soft ones. Her footsteps. One condition, one rule, the only thing standing between him and everything he'd come here for. Don't look back, that's all. He'd already done the impossible. He'd walked into death. He'd moved gods who hadn't moved in centuries. He was almost home. All he had to do was keep walking. Before we go down into the dark with him, you need to understand just who Orpheus was. He wasn't a warrior, not a hero in the usual sense. He was a musician, born, the Greeks said, to Apollo himself. And his playing was something beyond skill, something beyond art. Rivers changed course to follow the sound. Wild animals, mid-chase, would stop and lie down to listen to his melodies. Some even said Orpheus could calm a storm so long as he had his lyre. He could soften even the hardest of hearts. He put into music what people couldn't say aloud. That was Orpheus. And then he met Eurydice. She wasn't a goddess. She wasn't famous. She was a nymph of the meadows, quiet, clear-eyed, and Orpheus, who had moved mountains with his music, found himself at a total loss when he first tried to speak to her. And perhaps that's the part that mattered most, the part where they were just two people who'd found each other, where she'd tease him for forgetting to eat when he was composing, where he'd play something new and watch her face to see what she thought, where the world felt, briefly, completely, like enough. They were married in the spring. The ceremony was overseen by Hymenaeus, god of weddings. The torches, it was said, wouldn't burn properly. They sputtered, smoked, filled the air with something bitter, a bad omen. The guests noticed. No one said anything. After the ceremony, Eurydice walked through the meadow with her bridesmaids. The grass was long. The afternoon light was golden. She didn't see the serpent until it was too late. One bite. The venom was fast. She fell to the ground. Orpheus rushed to her side. He dropped to his knees beside her. Her breathing had already begun to slow. He called her name again and again. The answer never came. Even as the moon traced its path across the midnight sky, he called her name. He sat with her in that meadow, holding a hand that had long since turned cold. He didn't sleep, he didn't eat. The lyre stayed silent, and then, at some point, something shifted. He picked it up, not to play, not yet. He held it. He thought about the old stories, about what lay beneath the world, and who ruled there. Then he made a decision. He was going to get her back. The entrance to the Underworld was at Tyneron, a cave on the southern tip of Greece, where the earth simply opens and doesn't close, where the air changes, where sound dies, where the living cannot go. Orpheus went anyway. He descended into a darkness so total it had weight. The air was cold in a way cold air isn't, not temperature, something older, the kind of cold that settles over places untouched by time. At the river's edge, Charon was waiting, the ferryman of the dead, ancient beyond reckoning, eyes like coals in a ruined face, his boat low in the black water with the weight of the souls it carried. He looked at Orpheus, saw the warmth still in him, the breath, the heartbeat. He refused. Orpheus put the lyre to his chest and played. The sound moved across the sticks like it didn't belong there, because it didn't. It was living music, human music in a place where nothing living had come before. Charon's hands went still on his pole. He stepped aside. The far bank of the Styx was worse. Cerberus was there. 3 heads, each one independent, each one watching a different direction, each one with blood-red eyes and fangs a foot long. He raised all 3 heads when Orpheus approached. The heads snarled in unison as the boat slowed. Orpheus played. Cerberus lowered himself to the ground. Slowly, the eyelids grew heavy on all 3 heads. His snarl had been replaced with a slow rumble as he fell into a slumber. Orpheus walked past him into Tartarus, the realm of punishment, where the ones who committed the worst offences against the gods spent eternity in exquisite torment. The Furies were there, winged, serpent-haired, ancient beyond any god, whose purpose since the beginning had been to make the guilty suffer without end. They did not stop for anyone. They stopped for Orpheus. The music spread through the caverns, and the condemned turned toward it, one by one, as if called, as if the melodies knew each of them. Sisyphus, doomed to roll his boulder up a hill for all time, sat down on the rock, just sat, looked up, listened. The Furies, faces that had never shown anything but fury, wept. That had never happened before. That has never happened since. At the far end of the realm, on twin thrones of obsidian, sat the rulers of the dead, Hades and Persephone. Orpheus stood before them, alone, the only living soul in the kingdom of the dead. He didn't beg. He didn't make an argument. He played. He played the meadow where they'd walked. The way she laughed, sudden, surprised, like she hadn't expected to. The morning she'd fallen asleep against his shoulder and he hadn't moved for hours because he didn't want to wake her. The wedding torches that wouldn't burn right. The grass in the moonlight. The thing he'd reached for in the dark when he first woke up after she died. He played all of it. Every piece of her he was still carrying. The hall went silent. Hades looked at his wife. Persephone was crying. He turned back to Orpheus. For a moment, the underworld itself seemed to hold its breath, and for the first time in the history of the dead, he said yes. The terms were this: Eurydice's shade would be released. She would follow Orpheus back through the underworld, up through the passage, back to the surface, back to life. But Orpheus had to walk ahead. She would follow behind in the dark. And he could not, at any point, for any reason, turn to look at her. Not until they had both crossed back into the world of the living. If he looked before that moment, she returned. Permanently. No second chances. Orpheus said yes. One more walk. One more rule. He could do this. The tunnel felt longer this time. Steeper. The walls narrower and silent. A silence so complete that every footstep seemed to land in it like a stone in still water. Orpheus walked. He counted his breaths. He focused on the faint change in the air. Warmer, slightly, with every 100 steps. The dark was beginning to grey at the edges. He was rising. Behind him, footsteps. Soft, irregular, the way a shade moves. Not quite solid, but there. He told himself, she's there. She's right behind you. Keep walking. He listened. The footsteps continued. But the tunnel did something to sound. It flattened it. stretched the silence between his steps and hers until the gap felt enormous. He couldn't tell anymore if he was hearing her or just remembering her. Was she there? The light was closer. He could see the shape of the passage above him. Real light, daylight. 40 steps maybe. He thought about her face. He thought about what he'd say when they came out into the sun together. He thought about how it would feel to turn around and see her standing there in the light. 20 steps. The footsteps behind him. Were they quieter? Had they changed? What if Hades had lied? What if he walked out of the tunnel alone and the whole descent had meant nothing? 10 steps. He turned. She was there, right behind him, close enough to touch. And the instant his eyes found hers, the bargain ended. He saw her face. He saw relief in it, and grief, and something that might have been forgiveness before the underworld began pulling her back. She couldn't fight it. The rules had been clear. She reached toward him, her fingers almost. She said his name, once, soft, like she was trying to hold it one last time. Then the dark closed over her, and Orpheus stood in the mouth of the cave in the full light of the living world, alone. He tried to go back. He walked to the sticks and waited for Karen. He stood there for 7 days. No food, no shelter, saying nothing, just waiting for the boat. Karen didn't come. The living can descend once on extraordinary mercy. Death will not abide twice. Eventually, Orpheus left. He wandered through Thrace, through the mountains, through the places they'd been together. He played when he could bear to, but the music had changed. It wasn't music that moved rivers anymore. It was something raw. He never let anyone close again. He'd held Eurydice's return in his hands. He'd earned it in the hardest way imaginable. And in the final seconds, with daylight already warming his face, he looked. An arm's length away from the rest of their lives, she said his name. And he carried that for the rest of his.